So I think most of you who know me, and some of you who don't know me, maybe know that my husband died in August last year. And he was sick for a long time with a kind of dementia. And all of the poems that I've been writing in probably the last 6 years, he was sick for 10, but were all about him, or me, or us, and what we were doing in that. So I'm going to read you a couple of poems about that, and then I'm going to read an epistolary poem. Okay, so this is the first one. It's called Blue. Tree shadows on snow, or how I feel when he sees an imposter in the lines of my face. They call it a syndrome, this blue look in his brown eyes that sees my face as familiar but attaches no emotion. So I am not the wife he held when passion escorted our sons into life. The azure sky that floats above a daily haze. He and I try to see the light that comes from darkness, from the blue plight of no longer living in the world between us. He sings the blues, lyrics surfacing from his band ears. Yesterday it was, but you don't know me. As if I didn't know him, which I think I do. But then, can I really grasp how blue in his veins, on his once rough hands, is the red of a heart that's losing everything? So this second one is a short one, and when I was caring for Les and when he was sick, I became very close to little animals, even squirrels, and also to trees and birds. So this is about a tree that I was close to. It's called Almost Heard. Something in the crow's caw lifts the ash tree into sky. I am waiting for the moment when the call of the crow will enter me in that fashion, making present the way I am alive as the tree is alive. And whatever sinks me in the morass of this time, when his mind loosens all strings that tie him to the workings of the world, I can still rise buoyant by seeing how form is always fluid, the ash tree transforming from sapling to 60-foot elder here within the blink of my life. Okay, so here's the epistolary poem. So that was written to Candace. And so it's going to have a little bit of Candace's life and a little bit of what I'm telling her about my life. It's called The Language of Being Saved. I wish I could write to you in the voice of the river, floating under the filigreed bridge, as you and Walt walk your rescued dog near midnight, the small town rising quietly around you. Instead, I must say that I don't really know what we rescue each other from, nor why we inevitably wish to be saved by whatever life walks beside us. As pale green stitches itself to branches, and April reminds me that I was born, I attempt to penetrate absence here in the first spring without him. Your river has its masterpiece of motion, over which your feet walk on solid planks. I too move one foot in front of the other, but the echo of each footfall is deafening. Yet I will tell you that solitude is the way I find a language of inclusion. How I am part of all leaves and every raindrop, each thing a rescued place of who we were. So thank you. So next is Candace, and her first poem is going to be an answer to that last one.
Greetings, and thank you all for coming. And so I wrote back to Susie, and I titled it Echoes. As when you tap, ring the singing bowl. I fly easily out your tall windows, swim with ease in a blue sea skyward. Expectations falling away from the tight wires I walk, bones unstringing, breathing in, breath out, weightless and free. A big yawning smile as I turn to your call, the singing bowl, announcing return. Resounding in the joints of the beams and the seams of this house of safe passage. Breath in, breath out, emptied and filled. And what is it I am saved from but memories in words, released and rescued, carpentered in this place of kinship? Back home in his old dog bed, in the cling of memories sent, our brand new old dog falls fast asleep to soft music and our presence, but wakes instantly to a hint, the slightest sound of disappearance. Peter and Tink. Too soon after the alleged poisoning, Peter catches Tink in his fly, and not the first time, and hard to tell exactly why, but she was starting to think the way he said she drank his drink and the way she fluttered, he couldn't think. Sure, he apologized and cried like he always cries, but these excuses were getting thin, unattainable and aloof. It was always about him. The Lost Boys didn't have an opinion. Wendy believes enough for all of them. Tink is starting to wonder, is she the only one that sees Pete's shadow? When I scathe and scratch and batter about, as in go too far, when I go too far, a bomb buried deep set to put us both off. See the scatterings, and why is it I am always at the ready? On the mark, get set, losing it, anticipating evacuation when we are off, and there I go, too far, digging in the dirt of our diamond mines. And isn't it, yes, killing us? The incoming, the outgoing scare and scars of embattlement. When you go and when I cut too far into the jugular and the beat, the beating I'm giving our chests, breaking what's inside them. And the last poem is called Vampiric. You better stop this, he said, your fork-split tongue, the blowback blowgun words that bludgeon, derail, bad butterfly fists around the head, stop that. Crooked river chemistry, chicken bones and scratches, the breaking of dishes, his trigger finger poised to break the glass of this crazy track. And says he'll do it too, if I don't stop. We'll sing, string, and lasso those words, mouthing, goodbye for good this time. Some viper's voodoo, this nest of snakes wrestled to the floor. Two of us, speaking in tongues or not at all. On my lips, dangling there, his cross. And the next reader is Jeanne. Jeanne. Where did it go? Jeanne Lightfoot.
Hi, everybody. Does that sound okay? It's really hard to follow Candace, let me just say that. So the first poem that I'm going to read is about dreams, which I love, and I have worked with in my own life for 40 years, and as a psychotherapist with lots of people. So this is about paying attention to those, what Carl Jung would call a big dream. Dream body. First, there is the dream. Then there is the waking up. The moment of stillness out of which comes the knowing that everything has changed. First, there is the dream. Then there is the waking up. When God arrives, even though you don't believe, you are electrified by pure joy. First, there is the dream. Then there is the waking up. You realize you are the mother of this, gestating tender seeds that can only grow in you. A wild excitement rises in your throat. This next one is a bid for how important it is for us to be in the presence of each other after such a long absence. And this is about sitting as an oldening woman with an old woman. What I mean to say is that your presence matters. That it is not my objective simply to resist the face on the screen, though it is that too, but to relay my experience of yourself in the world, your physicality, the gently ebbing waves of your white hair, the tired lines around your eyes, your slowing body, still of this world, its energy, its knowing from a life lived, the felt intent of your listening, and how that becomes my own listening. The tilt of your head, your nod, how you receive me, my longing to know and be known. It's not that I don't understand the projections, the mirroring, the internalizations, but it is the realness of you that I love. Wounded flesh and bones, heart that speaks its own grief, the felt presence of you, me, the places where we touch. And my last one is my epistolary poem, which is to Anne, and she'll be responding. It's called, I Wake in a Body Holding. I want to tell you first about this morning's sky, how on waking it was salmon pink, and in a matter of minutes turned golden orange, then a foreboding gray, the promise of clear skies failing toward the coming icy rains. It is like this for me, holding optimism and beauty first. Even as I see them fade, watch the gray emerge, knowing that it too will have its time, and too, its time will pass. Isn't that our struggle always? To hold more than one thing, to sit in the complexity of life and keep our wits about us? I wake in a body holding a certain amount of discomfort, aches, and a spirit that, on the one hand, wants to stay in the netherworld of dreams. That same body rises to the enchantment of the waking sky, draws me into the waiting world, to my beloved, to the trees, the delights of coffee, work, friendship. That same dreamy spirit, on the other hand, is drawn in deep curiosity to what might unfold in this day. That is the simple part, isn't it? My own body, the day, my small world and its dualities, its vagaries. It's the world beyond my reach, the atrocities, disasters, the looming pall of authoritarian men that gathers in my bones, an ache, a grief, painful to hold alongside the vast loveliness of the morning sky. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeanne. These epistolary poems that we can, is this a good distance? Yeah? Okay. These epistolary poems that we did together were really delightful and fun, and there was something new in our exploration of it. So here, Jeanne wrote early in the month, and I was in a very busy stretch, and I said, oh, I'll probably get this to you in the last week before we meet. So here it is. And one of the pieces of the backstory was I had her book of poems and I hadn't spoken to her about it, so that's in here too. For Jeanne, on the table across from me, I have your latest book of poems. It's there along with a new translation of writings by Julian of Norwich. Remember her? A 14th century mystic who knew God as mother. All shall be well, and all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well. A comforting thought in these times. Also on the table, Thich Nhat Hanh on anger, along with the small notebook my cousin Lilibet made at Christmas. Like you, she is an artist in all ways. Taught herself silk ribbon embroidery, stitched a profusion of flowers on the notebook cover. She said, Anne, these are your delphinium. She was here this summer and saw their deep blue. Some days I pulled a chair into the garden just so I could sit beside them. And all shall be well. The notebook is exquisite. What would it be for? I waited. Then one day I knew. Each morning I make tea, take quiet time, breathe for a while. When I don't, I'm in trouble. This winter, Pema and Tai were my companions. It was their words I wrote in the delphinium book each day. Now it's almost full. I hold it in my hands like a small prayer book, beauty inside and out, the kind of book Julian might have held. Jeanne, I don't fit in this 21st century where the world goes so fast and there is so much hate. Was there always hate like this, and I just didn't know? And all shall be well. Back to your poems. I hope you can see they're in very good company. Here are my favorites. Anything about the tall man with the big heart. Both your deep companionship and also how hard it is some days. There's a man like that in my life, I understand. Would they say the same about us? They might think it, but probably not say it. Anything you write about you climbing the hill, following the fox, or the fox following you, anything about grandchildren, and a big yes to women marching, and all manner of thing shall be well. Love you, Anne. And I'm reading just one more. I have had the great privilege in the last 7 years of teaching women in Russia. And I've been there numbers of times, and then when COVID came, I went online. And when I went online was during the time when the war started. And many people said to me, "What are the women saying about the war?" So this is what happened, and this is my answer. What are the women saying about the war? Women's Circle, Russia, May 2022, online. We don't talk about the war. We don't even mention it. Yet it is with us in every breath we take. Someone says, "At this difficult time," and we all nod. Someone else says, "Ever since February 24th," and we nod again. We are a circle of women. Tonight, we are all mothers, even those who have never borne children. Our hearts are torn and ragged. War is a monster. We know what our work is now: to listen, to care, to encourage, to comfort, to put our arms around what needs to be held, to heal the wars within, the ones that separate us from each other and from ourselves, to mend all that can be mended. We don't talk about the war. It is dangerous to even say the word. Thank you.
So tall people and short people. How's that?
That's great.
I'm going to be reading from Garden of Things Lost, which was published in 2022 during COVID-21, so it never had its time in public. This is the first poem. It's called Swallows. My brother tells me about thousands of swallows living on Goose Island near the mouth of the Connecticut River. He tells me how they arrive each evening, a dense black cloud, as the light begins to die. How they descend a swarming funnel, falling like smoke, disappearing into reedy marsh to roost. When night presses its shoulder over the water, the sky is empty of their wing sounds, their liquid chirp. I swallow what I want to say to my brother, swallow years of never having him hear me. I think of the birds coming together, how they must listen to one another as they fall into the dwindling light, how they murmur and nudge each other, dream of migration, 500,000 soft breaths in the darkness. So now I have to find my place. Curran and I lived in Leiden for 30 years, and this poem is called Leavings. How to say goodbye to something that breathes your blood has sustained you for 30 years. Distant views, the long nourishing of eye and imagination, a bowl of sky in the dark of night with its soak of swarming stars, or the moonrise riding an eastern sky, full or wobbled just outside the window glass. Clouds sail like time, like words across parchment, a taut pull of grief. Tree swallows will return without us this spring. So too faithful Phoebe and a pair of bluebirds. Daffodils will push through old snow, and chives will reach for warming sun. But we will be away from this hill with its wide winds, hayfields of alfalfa and clover, howl of coyotes, and an enduring solitude. Clouds sail like feathers on a river, like the inevitable leavings of time, an exhale of letting go. These next two poems are Mexico poems. Curran and I went there every winter for 4 or 5 years. This one is called Puerto Morelos, Winter 2018. A mockingbird sits on an electric wire, mimicking as many bird sounds as he can. Quiets now, flicks his tail, surveys the street as the hour approaches 5. Palm fronds constantly sway, a lazy, slow sway this afternoon. Outside this walled garden, with potted crimson hibiscus, pink bougainvillea, green tiled pool, all the lovely touches tourists desire, a third world country lives a few blocks away. Corrugated or thatched roofs, dirt floors, chickens scratching in cracked limestone soil. On a broken sidewalk, a laughing toddler bathes in a 10-gallon bucket. I'm growing old now, weary of our beautiful broken world. Fear the coming order of things, the way truth grows thin, pales, becomes something forgotten. But for this moment, the mockingbird takes up singing again, and a great-tailed grackle creaks into an empty blue sky. The last poem I'm going to read is called Old Dyke in a Train Station. Snowstorms and canceled flights stranded in Philadelphia. We sit in the 30th Street station with its columns and filigree, statue of Archangel Michael, lifting a fallen soldier from the ruins of war. Always a war somewhere. A pair of house sparrows perch above the florist stand, hop along the back of worn wooden benches, where a ragged young man nods off at the end of our row. Arrivals and departures call out, echo in the tall ceiling room. There is an echo in my heart I can't seem to silence, grown deeper with years, prayers I've forgotten. 6 hours to wait before the train heads north, as Mexican tans already fading. People come and go, people wander, babies wail, children fuss, people embrace. In a corner, an elderly man quietly weeps. Outside the ladies' room, a homeless woman digging in the trash mutters under her breath, and then I see myself in a full-length mirror. You look like an old country dyke, I mutter to myself. Wrinkled flannel shirt, black baggy sweatpants, too much weight around the waist, rimless glasses, short hair, a baseball cap pulled down. I suddenly feel out of time and sometimes out of my mind. Back on the bench, I remember blossoms of red bougainvillea. Remember when I was young and my heart had no echo. Miss Molly Scott.
Miss Molly Scott. Miss Molly Scott. Well, I am doing, well, a lot of us are doing, which is archiving. It's supposed to be called throwing stuff away, but you know, what you do is you read everything. And a self of mine has just showed up this morning that I really want to share with you. It's a poem that I wrote in 1960. And it's sort of in a nursery rhyme fashion, but oh my God, I want to reach out to that young woman. And here we are. Molly, Molly, how do you grow? Through pain, she said, through pain. The inchly creep along the floor, the threaded muscles strain. Molly, Molly, what do you see? I'm blind, she said. I grope, with timorous fingers reaching out. I move by touch and hope. Molly, Molly, where do you go? Through dark, she said, and rain. Through thunder crashing towards the light to start it all again. Molly, Molly, where does it end? She said, I do not know. I walk in darkness, drawn by light. I only know I grow. Well over 60 years ago. Tattoo. The purple ink is fading more than a week since these marks were scribbled by someone she never saw on the skin of her body, defining this, not that, of her down there parts. To the surgical team she also never saw when she was IV'd, strapped to a gurney, and wheeled like a loaf of bread into the Klieg light heat of the operating oven. Not fading is her first response to seeing the marks. Tattoo, she thinks, and then snaps to branded. I'm branded. Not a memory exactly, but a remembered sense rising. The sizzle of skin, the thick, dark scent. She has been branded by being there. Dachau. In this body, on the concrete killing ground. Seen the gap-mouth ovens, the long gray room, the steel jets in the ceiling that spit gas, and the wall, bordered with spring flowers, yellow-white wall, still holding the thrust and bite of bullet, bone, and body, where the dark under-earth might still remember red from where they fell. Blood against the stone spurt crimson into brown to black as it soaked and sank. Wall like a struck bell, tolling over and over, bodies falling. Wall keeping track. She knows she is in a recovery room, in a recovery bed in a hospital now, with a hip injury marked with numbers from a purple pen. She also knows that she is a tourist walking down the long stone ramp out of spring sunlight into the chilled half-dark of the chapel, shaped like a chimney. Knows that she has fallen onto the hard floor, crushed by memories not her own, that she is weeping, that she is squeezed like a desiccating rind out of the fantasy of safety into ineluctable us. Ich bin Juden, her voice rings into the cold stone darkness. Ich bin Juden, she cries back in history, cries forward into this story, where, by present measure, she is not, where forever now she will be, is. Parchment. I'm thin-skinned these days, perhaps as eldering, surface stretched out across a life that's widened past containment. Metaphor and derma, simile and skin. I'm thinning out, wrinkling over, becoming more translucent, more opaque, like tourmaline or agate when the sun shines through. I've seen old parchment scores like that, dispersed in public markets stretched centuries away from quills that penned them or the mouths that sang. I had a scroll score once, picked up at random from an outdoor bin. Brushed lines and notes calligraphied in black with crimson flourishes across the parchment skin. a silent music I could neither read nor sing, but pondered if I might have once, or could again, some deeper than skin memory of monastic mornings, chanting matins, trembling from cold or from devotion, in sandals and thin woolen robe. Perhaps I'm turning into parchment now. At least my surface is. I sometimes feel as quick to pain as to reflection, although I still crave more luminous leading through this darkening light. As thinner skinned, I'm quickened in my quest for clarity, for sharpened seeing through first covering of things, for resonance more permeable, if also less secure. It's all in calibration, isn't it? The tuning like the djembe drums which call the voice of God. Too thick the skin, the call does not resound. Too thin, the membrane tears beneath the pressure of the hand. I have some drums like that, whose frame is sturdy but whose skin is torn. And me, I'm like that too. Sometimes I catch the rhythm, sing and sound. Sometimes I flounder, broken, like a flapping sail when no wind comes. This music's moment is what's mine in any case. Harp, drum, or viol, all rooted in this pulse of breath, this tissue, fluid, blood and bone, thin-skinned and patched, but not irrevocably done. Still longing for, still singing to, still calling out and daring to presume coherent conversation with a present God. And the next reader is Patricia Smith.
Of course, being humans, we are creatures of habit, and we all sit in our regular spaces.
We do.
And so this is the right order.
It is
So it
absolutely
feels perfectly comfortable, sort of. The first poem that I'm going to read to you today comes from a discussion I had with my three sisters. We were trying to work out something that had happened when we were kids and make sense of it. What an amazing discussion it was. 4 people, all in the same room, right? And part of it was that we couldn't understand why it had happened. We started talking about this, I guess, in 21. And it wasn't until just a year ago tomorrow that we figured it out. A year ago tomorrow, Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health was decided by the Supreme Court, taking away our agency. And through that, we understood what had happened back in the early 60s with my mom. Baby's breath. She knew instantly something was terribly wrong when it stopped moving. The doctor assured her everything was fine, but the nurse listened. Our family kept it secret while she carried the lifeless body for 2 months in her shriveling womb. When it was finally delivered, she saw it was a boy as they tossed him in the rubbish can. No swaddling blanket for him, no loving touch, no chance to say goodbye or hello. For a week, they kept her on the maternity ward, her full breasts weeping as infants cried out around her. All 4 of us sisters can still picture her when she came home that day. But each of us remembers being alone with her. She walked in slowly through the kitchen, slumping soundlessly into the chair just inside the door to the dining room. Daddy had dropped her off and left for work, so her oldest daughter, just 10, steered her into the bedroom. There, she saw the vase of flowers, blue forget-me-nots, yellow roses, surrounded by clusters of tiny white blossoms. She knew the name by her broken heart. It passed her lips in a keening howl, a lament for our first baby brother, who never took even one breath. It was a Catholic hospital, and it was pre-Roe. And women are living this again now. These aren't cheerful poems. I'm going to have to just admit it, like right up front. This one is called Extreme Pruning. It's been a hard winter this spring. Heavy wet snows wreaking havoc, roadsides everywhere, littered with downed limbs and slashed. Trees blown apart halfway up show fresh scars where branches sheared off. Thick trunks split in half, revealing a hidden core black with rot. Weeks later, large boughs still fall onto the wires hanging over the roads. Only a few orange cones in the ditch, warning drivers of the danger. Walking in the woods now is treacherous, tripping on roots below, always with a wary eye at the canopy above. In my own yard last season, I too raged across the landscape, hacking off whole branches of dogwood and sugar maple overgrown after more than 2 decades. Uprooting oak saplings and barberry shrubs, blocking the trail to the spring. Yanking out Virginia creeper and bittersweet, suffocating the lilacs and forsythia. Vines spreading every which way, entangling my own feet as I try to find the end. Or is it the beginning? And I'll just close with one very short, but this one has a happy ending. And it's one of those poems you kind of like want to see, on the paper, because it has a presence. It's called Not Today. The truck slid sideways into my lane, then right back miraculously. That's it. Thank you. And I am now to be followed by the inimitable Trish Crapo.
Thank you all for coming. I'm going to pick this up a little bit. Good. I'm going to read 3 poems that are based on the tarot. I recently finished a collage tarot deck that I had printed. I have some copies back there. This is the shameless promotion section. I also have a show up at the Rendezvous that they just extended through August. Right. And there's some postcards back there that you'd be welcome to pick up to remind you about that if you want to go over. So, the first poem is called Ace of Wands. My lover brought me a blossoming branch and lit me. My head went up in flowers. Oh, the folly, oh, the danger. Husks of seeds split open. He was a strike anywhere match. I was a bed of embers. 6 of Cups inverted. So some readers will have a different meaning for a card if it comes up upside down. So that's why the inverted. 6 of Cups inverted. That split second before the tray of glasses hits the floor is a trap door into possibility. Only right then can you escape without breakage. Why do we have minds, if not to imagine things as other than they are? I tell you to walk away without looking back, Yet I cried the morning the flowered plate from Japan broke. I saved the pieces. If you gave me back my childhood, it would not be the one I remembered. The one my father gave me would not be the one my mother would. Sometimes a mood settles over me that feels like wisdom, but nothing wise comes to me. And that's all right. I kind of had fun with these. This is called 9 of Cups. I set out 9 cups of water, and in the night 9 creatures come to drink. A panther on padded feet following the gold coals of her eyes. A fox, quick and furtive. The large buck who startled me in the woods last winter brandishing his antlers. The snake that left his skin twined through my peonies the summer my mother died. The ghost of the deer that had died inexplicably out in the far field, and the bald eagle that feasted upon her. The bird that sang from the bowl of your hands before you both flew off to other climes. 2 tiny orange newts that sipped from the same cup, leaving one for me. And then this last poem, so there was the line in there about the snake that left his skin twined through my peonies the summer my mother died. So I brought peonies too, which are over on the table. This poem is dedicated to my mom. It's called Love in the Garden. Pink-edged tutus riding the green foliage through June, soft bombs releasing an embarrassment of petals, dizzying the bees. Dizzy myself with prowess, I said to my mother, "Look at my peonies, so beautiful, so many, so full." My mother dragged on her cigarette, held the smoke in her lungs with something almost like love as she considered. Then exhaled. "I never did like peonies," she said. I laughed at first, stung. My mother, so expert at silence, couldn't have held her tongue. But now, my mother gone, it seems maybe she didn't think I needed her to like my peonies. I loved them so much on my own. So thank you guys for coming, and there are refreshments over there.